Hi, my name's Rich Hanlon. For this segment of My Wild Neighbors, I asked my friends Caleb and Parker what they might like to see a nature video on, and they said pileated woodpecker.
The pileated woodpecker's Latin name is Dryocopus pileatus. Dryo meaning wood, copus meaning cleaver, and pileatus meaning crested. Therefore, its scientific name, translated into English, means crested wood cleaver. And when you see what it can do to an insect-infested tree, you'd likely agree.
I can tell a pileated woodpecker's been here. Look at this tree. There's a hole here and up higher. Then look how it's the shape. It's kind of rectangular, square shaped. And look how deep this hole is. I can stick most of my whole hand almost fits in there. This is definitely the work of a pileated woodpecker.
Here's the thing about trees. At present, there are lots of trees in the state of Pennsylvania, and because of our relatively healthy forest, we have a healthy population of, you guessed it, pileated woodpeckers. That wasn't always the case, though. You ever seen a patch of forest that's been clear-cut, meaning that all the trees have been removed, where the whole forest looks like this? Then maybe you can imagine what it was like in the early 1900s when most of the trees throughout the entire state of Pennsylvania were cut down. Here's a historical photo of Pennsylvania from the early 1900s after the logging. I imagine the silence of no woodpeckers calling or drumming throughout the landscape to have been heart-wrenching for people who love birds, other wildlife, and forests in general. Just listen. Imagine our natural landscape sounding like this. The fact is that pileated woodpeckers need forests. They thrive in forested areas with large trees. Furthermore, a forest that houses pileated woodpeckers needs to include both live trees and standing dead trees. It's the standing dead trees that are home to some of the tastiest insects. How exactly do pileated woodpeckers interact with the forest they call home? Perhaps you already have an idea because you've experienced the joy of watching a pileated woodpecker excavate a large cavity out of a really big tree like this one. Just look at that head. It kind of reminds me of a hammer and chisel. Do you see it? There are a number of physical characteristics that make the pileated woodpecker perfectly adapted for digging ants and beetle larvae out of trees' bark and inner wood with that long pointed beak. The pileated is our largest North American woodpecker, and like other woodpeckers, it typically pecks at the bark of trees around 12,000 times each day. And it's able to hit trees hard with a force that would be like you slamming your head into a brick wall at 15 miles an hour. 12,000 times a day. Don't try this at home, kids. The good news is that the pileated woodpeckers are able to do this without getting a headache. It's partly because their heads are shaped just right for the job, because their skull is thick and spongy, and because woodpeckers don't have a lot of fluid around their brains like people do. This helps to keep their brains from rattling under the pressure of all that pecking. It's kind of like the woodpecker has a built-in helmet. Actually, many of the designs of sports helmets were crafted after the anatomy of a woodpecker's head. Cool, right? And it helps that they have a long, sticky tongue for extracting ants and beetle larvae from trees once they've created a hole. I'm glad I don't have a sticky tongue. Usually when we see woodpeckers excavating a cavity in a tree, they're perched on the trunk or branches of that tree, right? Which is why woodpeckers have two additional special abilities that help them with living life on the trunks of trees. A close look at their feet reveals that their toes are like grappler hooks. Check that out. Another thing to notice is that the tail feathers of woodpeckers, including the pileated, are very stiff and able to act like a prop support for the birds as they rest on the side of trees. All this talk about pileated woodpeckers reminds me of a time when I went turkey hunting with my dad when I was 12 years old. We'd been sitting in a forest at the base of a big hickory tree for hours when a pileated woodpecker flew through the forest in our direction. As it flew closer, I could hear it calling with every wing beat. Cock, 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 cock. And then it perched on the side of the tree that we were sitting under, just 20 feet or so above our heads. Dad and I both remained very still as we watched this crow-sized woodpecker looking for ants to eat right above us. And I'll never forget what happened next. After a few light taps on the bark, The woodpecker started digging in with such effort that it removed big chunks of wood and bark with every whack of its bill. For the next 20 minutes, big chunks of splintered wood rained down on us. Yeah, like these ones. Look at the size of these chunks of wood. You could make mulch out of this stuff. When the woodpecker had gotten its fill of protein-rich ants, it flew off to some other place in the forest. Dad and I were left covered in wood chips from head to toe. It was an amazing experience that I will always remember. Pileated woodpeckers may represent for us a bold wildness, the resilience of the landscape, and a spiritual rewilding in the soul of the human observer. Pileated woodpeckers need forests. And for the sake of our mental and spiritual health, so do we. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation about pileated woodpeckers today. And if you want to see a pileated woodpecker for yourself, go to a forest near you where there are some big trees and look for those deep square-shaped holes made by them and wait. There's sure to be one or a pair of them not far off. And by the way, I've only just scratched the surface of all there is to know about our wild neighbor, the pileated woodpecker. I wonder what new insights you might uncover about pileated woodpeckers through your own observations. Well, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.